Okay, so let's say you had $1 million housing budget. Well, the question is, which city would you move to? And in this video, I'm going to explore that exact topic. But before I get into it, I need to give you a little bit of background. In another video, which I'll link to at the end of this video, we reorganized the Economist 10 Most Livable Cities scale in order to account for purchasing power. Because the one thing that the Economist livability scale fails to do is recognize the purchasing power differences of the various cities. Can you really rank a city as one of the most livable in the world if it is completely unaffordable to actually live there? Well, the answer is no. So I'll show you quickly how we re-rank these. Basically, this was the list we started with. But then what we did is we looked at purchasing power, and specifically how far a dollar goes in each of these cities. And when we re-ranked the 10 most livable cities in North America, this is the list that we got. Now in this video, I'm going to go one step further by looking at exactly how much $1 million will buy you in each one of these cities. But before we get into that, let's take a look at the average home price in each one of these cities as well. So as you can see, there's quite a drastic difference in the prices in the 10 most livable cities in North America. For example, Pittsburgh has an average price of $229,000. Vancouver, on the other hand, is $1.2 million. Now, one thing to keep in mind here is that housing cost is a piece of purchasing power. So is income. So while Atlanta and Washington, D.C. may have drastically different housing prices, they have very similar purchasing power, which means dollar for dollar, they're pretty similar. And if you look at places like Vancouver and Honolulu, Honolulu may be significantly cheaper to the tune of about $400,000 than Vancouver is. However, the costs associated with being an island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean make everything else significantly more expensive. In fact, I think pretty much everything in Hawaii is more expensive because of the shipping costs associated with getting goods from the mainland to the islands. But the question you came here to have answered is, how much can you get for $1 million in each one of these cities? And I reached out to some of my favorite real estate YouTubers in order to get that answer. People like Brad McCallum, Ken Posick, Tom Story, Steve Karish, and my new favorite, Monica Church, who, if you haven't seen her channels, she has over 1.5 million subscribers and is a Seattle realtor. So without further ado, let's see exactly what $1 million can buy you in each one of these cities. And I think the type of home, depending on the area, is going to surprise you. So let's start first with Atlanta, Georgia. Now, in Atlanta, Georgia, your dollar goes a long way with respect to housing. Take, for example, this beautiful home. Priced at $995,000, it is 3,400 square feet, it is 5 bedrooms and 3 baths, and it is absolutely stunning. It obviously has a recent renovation, it's been staged nicely, of course, but this is an absolutely beautiful home. And to live in a place that has such high purchasing power, in fact, the best purchasing power of all the cities in the top 10 most livable ones, I think living in a home in a city like this would be absolutely wonderful. As we start to get into other places like Pittsburgh, who had the lowest average home price, $985,000 will get you 3,500 square feet and 6 bedrooms. So 1 extra bedroom and a little bit more square footage. Now, if you take a look at this one, it's marked pending. So what that means is that houses like this are actually selling in this market. So this is a valid data point for Pittsburgh. And if we take a look at the pictures, as you can see, once again, an absolutely stunning home that's obviously had significant work done and a significant renovation to make it as beautiful as it is. And again, the kitchens, they seem to be what sells properties. And in this one, it's pretty nice. Now, moving into Washington, D.C., you start to notice that the homes are going to get a little bit smaller. So for $1 million, again, this one's contingent, so it's sold with some contingencies. You're looking at 2,888 square feet. 5 beds, 2.5 baths. So the homes are getting a little bit smaller, but they're still very nice. And once again, a little bit of an older home because you'll notice that in some of these Eastern American cities, they're older communities. There tends to be more established housing with renovations, and this renovation, just like the others, is absolutely stunning. Now, this is where Monica Church jumped in and showed me exactly what you could get for $1 million in Seattle. Now, she described this property as small, but cute, and she noted that that would be pretty consistent with what you would find in core neighborhoods for around $1 million. She also mentioned to expect around 1,200 to 1,800 square feet, and if you're really lucky, you may find a 4,000 square foot lot that could be subdivided, which by the sounds of it is a popular thing to do in the core neighborhoods of Seattle. And again, digging into the photos on this one, as you can see, beautiful renovation, another nice property, and that's pretty consistent throughout all of these communities when you're spending $1 million. Now, moving on to Calgary, and now this is obviously the city that I live in, and it is one that has been ranked consistently as the #1 most livable city in North America. And in Calgary, where the Rocky Mountains are just 45 minutes out your back door, you can get one hell of a home for $1 million. Check out this one that my buddy Brad McCallum sent me. This one's priced at $1,050,000, and as you can see, not only is it absolutely stunning, but it's almost brand new. And that would be pretty consistent for $1 million properties in the Calgary area. Now from Calgary, we move on to Montreal. And in Montreal, you're starting to move into more historical areas similar to what you would find on the east coast of the US, which means, again, we're back to larger but renovated properties. This one, for example, has 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and it once again has an absolutely stunning renovation. That takes us to Toronto. And again, our purchasing power is starting to decline at this point, and this is the second most expensive city with respect to real estate when it comes to the top 10 most livable cities in North America, at just under $1.2 million. The only city that is more expensive from a real estate perspective is Vancouver. And as you can see, the homes are starting to get tinier. 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, and as you can tell from the pictures, an obviously tiny house. But again, at $1 million, you start to get those renos, and it starts to be a pretty nice looking home, albeit one that is very small. Now, that takes us to Miami, where real estate is cheap, but everything else is more expensive. I was really surprised to find out the average price in Miami is around $550,000 for a house. Now, this is where I reached out to Ken Pozek, who is an Orlando realtor, and he put me in touch with Catherine Rain, and she pointed out 2 properties to me. The first was a single family home priced at around $1 million, which is this beauty at $825,000. Now, what I love about this home is it comes with a pool, because if you're going to live in Florida at $1 million, you should probably have a pool. But again, as you can tell, older home, older neighborhood, nice renovation seems to be the theme at this price point in those more established communities. But she also sent me a listing for $1 million condo. And as you can see, at $1 million, you can get pretty close to the water. In fact, right on the water with pretty nice amenities. Check out this pool. But you're looking at 2-bedroom properties at around 1,160 square feet with massive homeowner association fees. But I think this paints a really interesting contrast, especially when you compare it to an old style home versus a brand new build of a condo. And that seems to be the trend as we start to get into these more expensive cities, is that if you want to live in something new, you better look high, as in high towards sky rises. And that takes us to the most expensive city in the top 10 most livable cities in North America, and that is, of course, Vancouver. We're looking at around 12 to 1,500 square feet. We're looking at sky rises, and we're looking at the 15th floor. And keep in mind that this is a below average home for this market. In other words, at $1 million, you're buying below the average home price in Vancouver. And you're almost with certainty probably not going to find a single family home. Last but not least, probably everyone's dream to move to, which is Honolulu, Hawaii. You're looking at around 1,434 square feet for a property there. 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, amazing view. But again, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, if you want to live in Hawaii, pretty much everything else is more expensive, which makes the overall cost of living the most expensive of the 10 most livable cities in North America. So obviously, no matter where you go, $1 million gets you nice finishings, but the main difference is the size of the properties. And if you've got a big family or you like entertaining guests from out of town, well, the chances of being able to do that at a reasonable price in places like Honolulu, Vancouver, and Miami are pretty slim. Oh, don't forget Toronto in that list. But if you want to live in a relatively decent sized home in a place where your dollar will go a long way, places like Washington, Pittsburgh, Atlanta, and Calgary seem to be the best bet. Because it's clear, if you want to buy a big brand new home, Calgary's probably the place. If you want to buy a really big home with some character, Atlanta, Washington, Pittsburgh all have that in play. And regardless of which of these cities you choose from a livability perspective, they're going to be amazing places to live. The key difference is how much money you're going to spend to live there. Oh, and if you want to see the full video on how I fixed the Economist 10 best cities to live in North America list, check it out right here.